32 ticks following, so they are swallowing. Monkey is swallowing, snake self swallowing. Next, a swallow 2 will fly and come and swallow. You're ever swallow in a hollow gallow, making a whole lot of halabaloo. Jale Kalu, we know say you chop the money some, so give me the loot. Do you really want a revolution or just your turn? Cause if you really want a revolution, all this for...
Hello, my name is Byenyan Bitrus, and I am delighted to have curated the Ake Festival Art Exhibition this year. This year, we are showing work from 6 artists from 4 different countries: Kenya, South Africa, Nigeria, and Ghana. So normally we are only able to show Nigerian artists because it's a physical exhibition, but because this year is virtual, we have the opportunity to go far afield, and we are showing artists from all over Africa. And it's such a pleasure to be able to work with these creative minds and these dynamic artists to put together this African Time exhibition. So I wanted to showcase artists that had a vision for Africa, artists that were talking about things that are happening now, artists that were interrogating the past, but also looking at the present and also trying to define the future of Africa. With this exhibition, I wanted us to be able to travel through time. We are taking 2 approaches to really discuss what African time means. We start out with artists who are working in more traditional mediums, and then we progress to artists who are working in digital mediums. So with our traditional artists, we have Fidelis Joseph, who is a Nigerian, working with watercolor and ink on paper. And his work is just so phenomenal because he highlights the struggles that we face in current time. His work is really personal in the sense that he brings in his own experiences into it, but also tries to empathize with the people who are going through struggles, people who have lost loved ones in insurgencies, who have faced all forms of violence, especially in 2020, and haven't been able to just mourn and grieve properly. So his work is really reflective of the time. And then we have Peterson Kamwathi from Kenya, who takes us through a personal journey, an individual journey of migration. And his work highlights what it means for us to live together as Africans, and in the different journeys that we take and the different places that we find ourselves, what it means for us to just be our Africans and showcase our Africanness. But he also calls us to reflect on the individual. From South Africa, we have Zwelethu Macphepha, whose work is about identity, and he has just very strong representation of Blackness in his work, and he uses charcoal drawings. But what's special about Zwelethu's work is he doesn't just make an individual readable, he just superimposes faces in one image, and you are not really able to tell what that person looks like. So in a sense, it just makes you understand the fact that people have different facets. Our lives are dynamic. So he wants us to be able to look at Africa with a different lens and with a different set of eyes. Then we transport ourselves to the digital realm, where we have 3 female artists who are just doing amazing work in the digital space. Their works are mostly futuristic, and their works are really special because they just transport us into a different Africa, and they show us a world of possibilities, and they just remind us that everything that we do right now, all the hard work, all the activism, all the work that we put into building this continent will not be in vain, and that eventually we will, get to the place that we desire. So Jacque Njeri is from Kenya, and her work depicts the Maasai warriors. You find them in space, but she still maintains that traditional aspect. So you can see they have their jewelry on, and they have their traditional attires on, holding their spears, and they are just really beautiful, flying in their spaceships. She just shows us how beautiful it is when we bring together the traditional and the digital together. We have Alexis Tsegba, whose work is Afrofuturist, and she also borders on surrealism. Alexis' work is also very Pan-Africanist. She believes in the concept of just one Africa. She doesn't see any difference in being a Nigerian, and she wants to be able to identify as a Kenyan as well. She sees all of us as one. So there's a particular image of of Alexis, where you'd find, she just shows us two worlds. So in those two worlds, you'll find Benin Mask, and then you also find a Maasai warrior standing right in front. The last of the artists that work in the digital space is Denyse Gawu-Mensah. She takes us back to old Ghanaian folklores, and she's trying to reimagine those stories that have been forgotten, the Anansi stories, and she highlights them and just bring like a visual portrayal of those stories. So if you remember your favorite Anansi story, just imagine what it would look like in a visual form. That is the beauty of what Denyse's work is bringing to us in this exhibition. I'd like to emphasize that all of the artists showcased in this exhibition are under 14. And it's significant because the youth population on the continent is huge. It's important that the work of the youth creating art is seen on a global scale. And considering the fact that our leadership is occupied by people in their 60s and in their late 70s and 80s, it's very important that the youth is heard and the voices of the youth is heard on the continent through their creativity, that we shine light on their creativity. So in talking about African time, I want to see more representation of the youth, and I want their work to enjoy a global audience and to be able to just experience what it is to create and to thrive in a continent that has given you, just so little over the years. So to start the exhibition, we are going to South Africa, and it gives me great pleasure to bring to you Zwelethu Macphepha.
My name is Zwelethu Macphepha, and I'm a visual artist based in South Africa, Johannesburg, and you're currently in my studio in 160, House 160 in Elof Street in Selby, and you are currently watching the 8th edition of Ake and Arts Book Festival.
They know even they try, show some respect when formulating life.
It must have been, I think, just like any other sibling would get attracted to either their brother or sister or whoever is around at the time. But with my case, it was my brother, who was a graphic designer at the time, I think. And he was, he just always had these like amazing illustrations, caricatures that he did that really I kind of copied. And I take that and, redraw it and, distribute it to my friends and so forth. And I mean, that's probably my earliest fond memory, if I choose, So yeah, I mean, as part of like my healing process, I got introduced to theater rather, as I wasn't even conscious at the time, but it was as a medium of expression, and I got introduced to it at around 13, 14, and it was a healing process for me because it taught me to be a bit more engaging within myself and with my process, which later on allowed me to engage in other different mediums. In this case, my artistic process, and taught me a lot of things like investing in myself, investing in the process, and engaging with myself. So my process consists of a variety of mediums. I focus at the moment, work primarily on paper. So I use charcoals, pastels, acrylic, fine line pens, and recently some bit of embroidery. And all of those mediums put together, they kind of create a new dialogue. I consciously decided not to get a formal education because of like my understanding of that nature. Have an understanding of practice first before using an education as an extension of our practice. Fortunately for me, I've had a bit of access to informal training And that has allowed me to be able to express myself a bit more, and has added a bit more value, because I'm understanding myself firstly as a black person. Okay, what is called black in the rest of the world. And that has kind of enabled me to become myself first. And then I can adapt to certain principles or disciplines to the rest of the world. This work for me is a reminder of like our greatness, you know, because I mean I see it in myself. I'm not claiming anything that I'm great or anything, but I see my greatness within these works, you know, because it pushes me to see my discipline within myself, my practice, and everything I have to do with it, because there's so much order in these artworks. It's perfectly architecture. It's like the design is like it's God-given, and no education can teach me this. So the body of work I'm going to be showing for the Ake Arts and Book Festival consists of 2 body of works, and I say 2 because they vary, but it's the same thing. I find it so amazing more recently as I get less insecure with myself and with my work, that I'm starting to see a lot of myself also through my work, you know, because as like I said earlier on, as an African, I'm very insecure with my Africanism as well, you know, and a lot of that comes from the curse of our history, insecurities as a human being, but also within that mess, just trying to find yourself, you know. And I think that's one thing that's just so diverse about Africanism, is that although we're so confused and running around with all these reinterpretations of our existence, we still have a sense of kind of know where we belong, but we just haven't tapped into it because apparently, you know, we've been dispossessed with all of that knowledge. So this body of work kind of taps into that, you know, trying to re-engage with yourself, revisit yourself and your history. It could be anything that has to, you know, that contributes towards. It's just like, it's a whole lot of what I know and I don't know, you know. Based on the demographics of firstly of our country, it is very necessary that at the least we portray our understanding of ourselves. And in my work, you know, it's probably the only platform where I'm able to articulate my, it goes from my deepest insecurities to my highest point of living. And that for me is like a platform where, you know, it's like you can exercise, it's like a stage, being on stage and just performing your foolish deeds if need be, you know. So with my current body of work, which is very much based on instincts, you know, on what I feel before being told what it is, or you know, using a bit of selective information to influence my body of work. Revolves around, you know, kind of taking back dignity, you know, giving black people their own dignity. It's so important, you know, and it's hard because it's not normal, you know, to see, especially in our continent, to see, you know, black people being very dignified and holding high positions within themselves, even before public spaces or anything of that sort. So, you know, this work informs that, you know, and I used to be so specific with the characters. until I kind of realized that, to take over, you shouldn't be selective, you should try just to move collectively. So I've stopped being selective on people that I choose, because we all deserve the glory. Well, African time would depend on the context, because when we say African time right now, we are referencing, it's always referred to black people being delayed. It's like when you are on African time, you are 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, a century behind. When we speak of African time, our first reference is always colonization. That's our deepest knowledge of our history. Whereas we've had like the pyramids, the hieroglyphics. It's just like that's the order of Africa, And going back, it's like for me to go forward is to go back, even to go backwards, just to understand where we've been positioned in order for us to progress, and not even marrying this Eurocentric way of living, but just to have a sense of rooting. We need to root ourselves back into our understanding, which goes back to what I was saying earlier on, that part of the reason why I haven't been educated like that is going to universities, because everything about it is just the opposite of who I am, And for me to see a better Africa, you need to go back to Nkrumah, to Sankara, to Nyerere, to Robert Sobukwe, to Steve Biko. All of those philosophies are my African time in terms of context. Whereas everything else is just it's reinterpreted rather, And it's just so painful to see that even our current leaders, our future is falling into a apparently unified world. My dream of a developed Africa, or developing artistic practice within the continent, would firstly have to, like I said, educate ourselves in our intentions in what we do. And I say this because I just wonder how prehistoric Africans used to imagine themselves, because when you look at like African artifacts all over the world, I mean, what kind of education did those people have in order for them to produce such kind of work? That was stolen from them and now stored in some prison in the so-called museums. It's a horrific incident, But I wanna encourage that we all focus on our own independence. That is the biggest thing for me. Before even unfolding everything else, we have to find our own independence as artists, so that we can be as different as possible. Because that is the biggest downfall for most of our creatives, that everything that we try to do is replicated from what we read in the textbooks, on what we're told in our institutions, which is very unfortunate, because I mean I've got really good artistic friends that like paint like a Rembrandt. I'm like, why would you paint like a Rembrandt? It's frustrating, but it's also still it's beautiful to see that one can, it's like, black people are probably the most versatile, because they can go from 0 to 100 just like that, easily, whereas I don't know about the other race. I can't speak for that because I don't know. Yeah, I just wish independence for people. And I say this because like I remember myself when I first got my break as a creative. I didn't have pressure to pay rent, pressure to do these things. I just had access to do things, and that gave me the ability to think like I do, to make the work that I do, because I was able to think and feel freely. And that contributes a lot towards my extension as firstly as a creative, and obviously unfolds as a human being, you know.
Welcome back. Now it's time for us to take a trip to Kenya and see the works of Peterson Kamwathi.
My name is Peterson Kamwathi and I'm a visual artist. I am from Kenya and I live in an area called Limuru, which is just outside Nairobi. I am taking part in the 8th edition of the Ake Books and Art Festival under the theme of Africa Rising. So my dream for art and artists on the continent in Africa is that we get to a place, and I think we're getting there, or we're headed there, whereby we have much more, I guess, direct engagements, with each other. And I think this festival, is one of the initiatives towards that. In nation building is one, I think, is leveraging the strengths, I think, towards that which is which enables societies, communities, and that grouping, to kind of understand itself, and by understanding itself, also assert itself. There's also that. I think any individual is by virtue, of just being that, linked to the dynamics and processes of, the communities that they are part of. So then, of course, the decision is what value or what do you bring, what do you leverage, what strengths, is one able to apply. How do you? It's both a very simple and a very difficult question. Simple because I think any individual, by virtue of being that, is part of a state, is part of a nation, and all their deeds or misdeeds, will always add to the pool of what constitutes. I think what the current pandemic, one has had, and I think will continue to have a very direct impact on how we move, physically, between places. But I also think that what it also does, it also gives us the opportunity to really prioritize, and in a way leverage and reset, I think, some of the, in how we've engaged, So I think, there's been a lot of this conversation around, kind of south-north, movement. But then maybe now it's time to kind of look at, how do we make that which is closest to us, our neighbors, the African conversation, the Pan-African conversation, how do we leverage it and, and also, in a way, how do you do so in a way that is beneficial, for the societies that we're part of? Yeah. So maybe I think it is an opportunity to relook at, re-examine, and then, where possible, also implement other systems, so long as those systems enable, very productive and constructive and healthy engagement. It is time to really prioritize. A way of, how do I put it? It can also become an agency, towards, I guess, the creation of new systems or the addition of new systems, Yeah. Some things we have to do away with, other things we have to give the focus that they deserve and the attention, that they deserve. Very interesting. When we had the lockdown in Kenya, I had a very interesting, there's a point like 3 weeks in where I realized that I'd spent less money, and obviously so because there's really nowhere to go. But then it's almost like previously I would always find and look for a reason to go, and not be here. So my experience here, and especially with my family, is that I've discovered more about the area I live in, and I've been here for like 6 years. By virtue that we've been walking around, and there's a waterfall behind us that it's taken me 5 years to discover this waterfall. I could hear the sound, but I never knew what that sound was. So I guess the act of relooking is also the act of really stopping and taking stock.
Now we're bringing it home to Nigeria, and we're traveling to Abuja to see Alexis Tsegba and the incredible work that she's doing.
Hello everyone, my name is Alexis Tsegba and I am Nigerian. I live in Abuja and I'm really excited to be one of the artists who's exhibiting with the Ake Arts and Book Festival. This is the 8th edition, so yeah, it's really exciting for me. I think, like most artists, I've always known that I wanted to be an artist. I just never stopped, I suppose. It changed my life was going in a different direction from art, but I realized at some point that this is what I wanted to do full time. I think from childhood, I knew from childhood, but I went on to do a degree in law for my undergrad, and then I think it was at that point that I realized that I genuinely wanted to do this full time, and I wanted to dedicate my life to art and to doing this, to pursuing my passion. So yeah. I was very inspired by my art teachers. There were a lot of teachers who were guiding me, encouraging me to keep going, not to stop. I remember one of my first paintings, there was one of my teachers from secondary school. I think I must have been in year 11 or year 12 at the time. And I painted something, it was my first watercolor painting, and he was so amazed by it, and he was just like, yeah, just keep going, keep doing what you love. And yeah, I think from an early age, my teachers really did inspire me to pursue this dream. So for this exhibition, I'm showing a number of works, but some of them are one called Third Realm, there's another one called Dreamers Only, there's one called Musing, and there's one that is very close to my heart called Exalted, and that's the one that I'll be talking about and expanding on. Exalted is basically a very Afrofuturistic type work. Afrofuturism is one of the themes that I like to explore, and this one is mostly related to women and how we see and treat women in African culture, almost thinking back to our culture before colonialism, and also moving forward as well. It is about exalting the woman of color and showing her as a woman who's capable of worship almost, and of power, a woman that wields power. And this work borrows from Renaissance art and almost shows that there's skies happening, there's statues, there's men almost in the background giving credit and adoration for this woman who has like a crown of pearls around her head, showing that she's powerful and that she's capable of not just loving, but of worship, yeah. For me, what is integral to my work as an artist is being able to show the world as I go through it, no matter what it is, whether I'm afraid or I'm elated to speak about a certain subject or to make work about a certain subject. It's about facing that fear and saying it anyway, because I do believe that, you know, art should comfort the disturbed and disturb the comforted. Yeah, I think for me, African time means reclaiming time that is for us. It's about moving beyond what the colonialists have imposed on us. It's about reconnecting to our roots and reconnecting to our culture in a way that is also futuristic, in a way that is not just, that is about thinking about later, as well as connecting to what used to be, rather than just being satisfied with what has been placed upon us. So for me, that's what African time means. I would like to see more growth. We're growing, where art is becoming much more appreciated than it was years ago. You know, we're learning new things, we're expressing ourselves in different ways. There are more opportunities for artists, for young artists like myself and lots of other people now than ever before, really. So I'm happy with where we're at, but I want, like most other artists, I want more for us. I want us to appreciate art more and to get more opportunities. I want us to tell stories that are difficult to tell. I want us to look in the mirror, you know. So yeah, I think that's what I would like to see. I would like to see more of us telling stories that scare us, but we're still doing it anyway because we understand how important it is. The first one is how digital art has changed over time. There's been a lot of growth. I think with the introduction of social media, especially, digital art has changed and is changing. It's changing so quickly. There wasn't a lot of people or a lot of artists that were comfortable with creating in this way and expressing themselves in this way before, because there was a lot of cherishing and there was a lot of motivation for traditional artists. Digital art itself was not really seen as art because, you know, you're using like a computer that's assisting you on iPad or something like that. So there's a lot of like stigma around it. I suppose even now there's some stigma that, you know, is not real art. But that is changing so much because there's Instagram now, there's Facebook, there's Twitter, there's so many digital platforms that artists are able to express themselves through and on. And yeah, there's much more acceptance now. There's acceptance that this is a real art form and that we're contributing towards topics that are important to talk about, and that digital art is here and is here to stay. And you know, artists are putting in a lot of work. There are a lot of artists out there putting in a lot of work to show how, you know, to contribute towards certain topics. So I think it's doing well. In terms of Afrofuturism is important to me. It's one of those themes that you see in my work, and it's important to me because for me it allows me to tell a story of what my ideal Africa could look like what Africa could look like in the future, merging, you know, diasporan experiences as well as local experiences, both personal and otherwise. It allows me to show that we can come together and use our culture and use technology as a way to further ourselves and push ourselves. So yeah, I think that's what Afrofuturism means to me, and I think it's important because it contributes towards this idea that we're powerful and that we're wonderful and that Black people are a people that are great, but that could be greater. Well, final words. I'm just grateful. I'm thankful to be doing what I'm doing. I'm thankful to be exhibiting with Ake. I'm thankful for all the opportunities that are coming to me. Yeah.
Hello, Ghana. We are delighted to be coming to Accra to see the fantastic work of Denyse and experience the beautiful Anansi stories that she's going to tell us through her images.
Hi, my name is Denyse Gawu-Mensah. I'm a Ghanaian. I currently live in Accra, Ghana, and I will be exhibiting in the 8th edition of the Ake Arts and Book Festival themed African Time. Growing up as a child in primary school, art was something I was always attracted to. Color, shapes, texture. I first realized I wanted to be an artist when I was in about class 5, and our teacher would give us assignments, art assignments to do from home. Another thing that really pushed me towards art was my father. My father had the skill to draw, my uncle also as well. So I used to pick up the interest of art from them because of what I was seeing around me. Sometimes they would draw a sketch, a car or a face, and I saw that as something that I wanted to do in the future. When I got to primary school, I finally decided that I was going to continue my art into secondary school. My parents are very supportive about it. They pushed me, and it's something that I've enjoyed doing since. What is essential in my work is imagination. Without imagination, I wouldn't be able to recreate and reinvent what I do now. African Time to me makes me think about development in the African community, change, growth, a point where we cross into a better Africa. My dream for the development of art in the African continent is for us to be able to communicate with every bit of Africa and to bring us together and connect us through art. That's one of the dreams I have for art. The first time I was introduced to digital art was in primary school with the paint software in my ICT lab. If you look up, Photoshop is something that I use in my practice as an artist. If you look at the development and the growth of the Photoshop software itself, it shows the rate at which digital art has developed. Now, one of the first Photoshop softwares we had a black and white interface. Today, we are able to make more complex commands and create more complex things out of the current Photoshop apps that we have.
Now we are heading back to Kenya to experience the work of Jacque Njeri, who's going to show us the Maasai warriors in space.
What's up, everybody? My name is Jacque Njeri from Nairobi, Kenya, and I'm excited to be exhibiting at the 8th Ake Arts and Book Festival.
Or just your turn. Cause if you really want a revolution, all this for Ben. Or you go shut out the rig the system to forever fail us. Syllables and languages we learn.
I've always known that I wanted to be an artist since I was a child, and I think my parents always knew because when it came to magazines or newspapers, I'd only focus on like the pictures and the adverts, and even the same for, let's say, books. I'd focus on the illustrations. So it was clear for everybody that I was leaning very much into art. So they nurtured that in me. So yeah, since I was a child, that was like very evident for everyone. My mom's reaction was the best because I went to university and told her that I wanted to pursue a degree in art. She was taken aback because all the time, all through my childhood, she thought art was a hobby for me, and here I was saying I want to do a degree in art. So, because African parents expect you to pursue other careers in medicine, in law, and all this, you know, white collar jobs, and here I was saying I wanted to be an artist. It's always interesting when I answer this question when asked, because my answer is always, my inspiration is not what people expect. My inspiration is drawn from every person who's very passionate about their job. I am inspired by someone who wants to be the best at what it is that they do, and that makes me want to wake up in the morning and be the best at what I'm doing. I would lie if I said I had a process, because I'm inspired by day-to-day things. So I would be sitting with my friends, and then something will spark my mind, and I will go to my laptop and start working on any idea that comes from that thing that sparked when we were conversing or we were working or whatever activity it is that we were doing. At this exhibition, I will be showcasing my project Masai, which is a project that I'm very proud of. It's what has brought me here. The themes for the entire project are science fiction, futurism, culture, and women empowerment. I think what's integral in my work is that I'm true to myself, and I represent ideals that are true to me, and also things that I want the world to pick up on or to embrace, things that I would want to happen. And so things that are true to me or things that I want to happen are what are the center of my work, and that's what I want to communicate and what I want people to embrace and, you know, make it happen. African time to me means it's time to be unapologetically African, because we have made ourselves heard, we've made ourselves seen, and it's time for the world to stop and start recognizing us. My dream for art and artists in Africa is to be able to make a living out of our art, and more so lucratively, just like our European counterparts or like the rest of the world. I feel like African artists struggle to make a living out of their art, and so a lucrative way to make money would just be like the dream for me. I think with the proliferation of smartphone technology, a lot of people are able to now have to do things on their own, things that would need a team before, because of some of the features that are available on the smartphones. So that has made so many people be able to make art, and even on the move and instantaneously. So that makes digital art like evolve super fast, and like it's just like the best time for that to happen. I'm just glad it's time. I explore Afrofuturism through things that I'm very keen on, such as science, the future, technology, women empowerment, women leadership, and just everything exciting about the future. As an optimist of the future of Africa, Afrofuturism presents possibilities, and as they say, life imitates art. So I feel like it's possible to make strides in the themes that are represented in the genre.
Now we are back in Nigeria, to the beautiful city of Lagos, and we're taking a trip to Fidelis Joseph's studio to interact with his work.
The theme of the body of works that I will be showing at Ake Arts and Book Festival was gotten from a book I read. Marina Abramovich, she's a performing artist. She wrote a book about her life, which she titled Walk Through Walls. I find it very interesting to use that as a theme for my body of work because of the intense difficulties, pains that she actually have to go through in the process of her performance. I actually it's related to what I was actually focusing on with the portraitures that I decided to present. These portraitures were inspired also by the present condition of so many people that are going through hardship, that are going through pain, more especially from this contemporary time in the history of our nation, because this year in particular, 2020, has been a very difficult year. So within the period of all these hardship, that was what gave birth to the works I've created so far. And some of this pain and hardship were things that also affected me as a person. In particular, it affected me directly. So in other ways, I feel putting portraitures out and trying to show the aggressiveness, or should I say, I was trying to project pain in order to provoke conversation about what we are going through at the moment. More especially when you look at the work titled Libera 2 and Libera 1. I decided to use that title also because when you look at laborers, bricklayers, for example, when you look at them closely, you see so many when you look at them, you can see, I tend to see a lot of hardship. I tend to see the distortion on their facial expression. So using that, I decided to use that to also to portray some sense of hardship and difficulties. And I decided to try to show that this hardship and difficulties doesn't just stop at the level of the adults, but this is also something that the children also get to be affected, because what affects the parents affects the children. So in another way, I decided to extend this series into making portraitures of even children or teenagers. I feel it is important also for me because I'm trying to document this very particular season that we are in, this particular moment that we are passing through. I feel for me as an artist, I feel it's something that is very important to my practice to document some of these events. What is integral to my work as an artist? It is very important that I pass a message with my works, with every work I create. We look at how public reacts to certain artworks, but then we don't. For me as a person, I wouldn't want to limit the theme of my work, the thematic concepts behind my works, to the reaction of the public. But first of all, it has to come with how sincere am I with what I'm actually doing. So it is important that I'm sincere with what I'm trying to put out first, but also I'm conscious that these works are not going to be with me forever. So putting them out is also knowing that people are going to look at these, and people would have to want to go into the work and understand what the work is all about. So it is important for me, first of all, to satisfy myself as a person, as an artist, with what I'm doing before putting them out. The African time means to me, I think I'd like to say it's about who we are today. It's about where we are going. what is the current state of Africa today, and also how do we embrace our culture today? Which direction are we going with our culture? What will it look like in the nearest future? Because what we do today really has a lot to do with what will happen tomorrow. So that is what African time means to me. My dream for the development of art in African continent will be more enlightenment in institutions, in primary schools, in secondary schools, because I feel we haven't done much in that area. Because coming from the northern part of Nigeria, I know how little people are aware of art, and of course it's part of our art is part of our culture, but basically I think I will have to say that the development has to do with the awareness that we create amongst ourselves, because I feel like a lot of people are ignorant of how diverse with art and with culture. People need awareness. I think it's very important that we create more awareness, and I feel like Ake Art and Book Festival is already doing that. That is what they are also trying to do, trying to expand this narrative, trying to include the public to have a wider understanding of what our culture is about. So I feel to develop art in African continent, we need more institutions, more spaces that will promote some of these art-related festivals. Yeah.
I hope you've enjoyed getting to know our African artists. To experience the exhibition, please visit akefestival.org/Art for African Time exhibition. We can't wait to see you. Please support the artists by talking about their work on social media, follow them and just interact with them, and most especially buy their works. Thank you.
Sticky, spicy, sweet.
I want to go then. And don't touch me. I will get you arrested.
Very, very easy.
Relax, everybody. He shot you.
That 5 minutes madness only you can understand. Visit myspectre.com to get your Spectre experience. Spectre, loans in 5 minutes.
If you ever need a new place to go, you can join me in a world of words. When it seems like I'm nowhere to be found, if you look, you'll find me in a book. Let's take a ride to the past in the back of a phoenix. Let's float around the moon. You'll never be alone, now you know where to look. Find me, find you, find the world in a book. never be alone. Now you know where to look. Find me, find you, find the word in the book.
We don't just think of ourselves as a bank. We think of ourselves as corporate citizens with responsibility for growing the economy. Reading and education is a key part of it. But equally important is having access to reading materials at home. A lot of the intervention we've done throughout this COVID is to ensure that people can safely navigate the uncertainties of the COVID crisis and come out of it ready for, to live again.
Let's take a ride to the past in the back of a phoenix. Let's float around the moon.
The dreams that we have are limited by what we have directly interacted with. What reading does is it makes it possible for you to begin to live in worlds that don't yet exist. One read creates a discipline of reading. One read puts me on a timeline. It gives me an important book and I have an opportunity to read it and to collaborate. It's almost like having someone who does your book selection for you. If you have editors and people who are really good at this saying to you, this is the book for the month, I value that. I want to be able to read in a community. I want reading to be a collaborative thing. I want reading to be a communing, and One Read allows me to do that. I will use One Read any day, anytime.
Stranger's Guide is not a typical American travel magazine. Our mission is to dive deep into a single location, commissioning work from great writers and photographers, famous individuals, as well as up-and-coming new voices. This year, we decided to go to Lagos. And we are proud of the volume we produced, with original work from some of Nigeria's best writers and photographers, working with luminaries like Wale Soyinka, Molara Wood, and Femi Kuti. We think this is a very special volume, and we're so excited to bring it back to Lagos.